2022, Tennessee averaged 46 points a game. Last year, they averaged a little bit under 32. I think they're going to be in the 38 to 40 point range this year. So not as good as the Hooker years, better than the Milton years. How does that translate on the field? I think it delivers you 9 wins in the regular season. But that's where I see the offense being, in that 38 to 40 point range. Do you see it in that range or more?
I'm going more. I'm higher. I think they're going to surpass 2022.
You think they'll have 46 a game?
I do. I have said for a while, I felt that Josh Heupel put all of his chips on the table for the 2024 season, and he's been doing that. He's been working towards that for 2 or 3 years. That's why you saw all the NIL money spent to keep players. That's why you saw him shove all the defensive backs out the door into the portal this past offseason. I think Josh Heupel knew what he had the minute Nico arrived on campus in December of 2022. And I think everything he's done has been to prepare for this year with Nico. And there are some times where a starting quarterback makes a massive splash his first year. I mean, we can talk Jameis Winston at Florida State. Whatever you think about him off the field. Johnny Manziel, you're right. That's another one. I think Nico Iamaleava is going to be like that. And I know that's crazy, but I'm very Jimmy. I think it would be disappointing if Tennessee only won 9 games this year.
Disappointing at 9?
I think it'd be disappointing.
Yeah,
I do.
I've got them losing to Georgia and Alabama, and somebody else. I don't know if that's Oklahoma. Anyway, go ahead.
You're going to call me crazy. I think Oklahoma is a tougher game for them than Alabama this year.
Because it's on the road?
Because it's on the road. Yep.
You think Oklahoma's better than Alabama?
I think Oklahoma's tougher for Tennessee. I don't know if they're better than Alabama because I don't fully believe in Brent Venables, but I think Kalen DeBoer is a better coach than Brent Venables. I do think that. I'm not so sure how ready Alabama is for – And here's the other thing I wanted to bring up. I'm not so sure Jalen Milroe is a great fit for Kalen DeBoer's offense. When I watch Michael Penix play, he and Milroe are very different quarterbacks.
Well, that's a good point. You cannot run the offense at Alabama that you ran in Washington because Milroe is not as good a passer as Penix. So what will DeBoer do? Will he adjust his offense to suit Milroe's skills? That's what good coaches do. That's what Saban did throughout his career. Heck, those guys, I may be wrong about this. I think they reached the national championship game with Blake Sims at quarterback. Right?
They did.
Come on.
They did.
So he did make some adjustments, and he got a lot out of his players. And so the X factor will be Milroe and how DeBoer uses him in his offense. So that's still up for debate as to how that works. Now, I still think Alabama's got outstanding personnel. They've got really good players. And so that'll be a challenge. I could see where you're going with Oklahoma, but I would still take Alabama as the bigger challenge just because I think they have the better team. And I'll say this too. Don't doubt for 1 second that Heupel has Oklahoma circled on his schedule right now because, and he won't say this publicly, but I believe this. I believe that him getting fired at Oklahoma has lit a fire under him to the point where he would like nothing better than to go back to Norman and beat Oklahoma and the shadow of Bob Stoops.
I'm going to reroute for a minute because I was going to talk about one thing, but I'm going to nix that and talk a little bit more about this because this is just such a good topic because I kind of agree with you about that. And the other point about that, Dave, is that Jimmy, sorry. So they obviously have their first marquee game on September the 7th when they play NC State.
Mm-hmm.
But that Oklahoma game is the last game in September. And look at the schedule that day. That Tennessee-Oklahoma game will be the premier game of college football that Saturday, if you look at the teams playing that day. I think there's a few things happening here. I know this much. Josh Heupel does like the stats. He really likes to promote, to inflate his quarterback stats. He likes to run up the score. You are right. He likes to get revenge. He wants revenge on Oklahoma. He, to this day, will never acknowledge. He does not think he should have been fired. He thinks he was scapegoated. Right. And I don't know if you know the full story, but that offense that he ran the last year in Oklahoma was forced on him because Bob Stoops was trying to replicate Johnny Manziel with Trevor Knight, even though Josh Heupel was insisting Trevor Knight can't run that offense. And So there's a lot of animosity. I think that
didn't Stoops keep his brother as the defensive coordinator?
Yeah,
and
kept
fired
Mike
Heupel?
defensive coordinator. Yep. Scapegoated Heupel.
Yeah.
And then he brought in Lincoln Riley to run the same offense Josh Heupel wanted to run the year before, but Stoops wouldn't let him.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of animosity there. You're right. But when you add that it's the marquee game, the last weekend of September, Jimmy, that game could be the game that that could have, it could be after that game that everybody starts talking about Heisman with Nico. It'll be like this. Do you remember, you were probably covering it. Wasn't it the Arkansas game in 95 that got the whole country talking about Peyton Manning after that?
Yeah, he lit him up. He scored in the 40s. That game, I'm sure it was in Fayetteville, and they scored like 45 points against Joe Lee Dunn's defense. And Joe Lee Dunn was considered one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. And Manning and Cutcliffe were a step ahead of him. But they absolutely lit him up. It's still, in my opinion, one of the 5 best games Peyton Manning ever played at Tennessee. He was phenomenal that day, and Arkansas had no chance to stop him. And that is a game that elevated Manning into the national spotlight as one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen with Nico after they play Oklahoma. And I think Josh Heupel has a mission. But all that being said, I think right now Oklahoma on the road you're right, Alabama probably has more talent. I think Oklahoma is a little bit more, has a better fit for their personnel, for the coaches, coaching and what they're doing. But I think we agree that those are the only, if you look at their schedule, those are really the 3 toughest games they have, right? Oklahoma, Alabama, and Georgia. In
my opinion, you got Florida and Knoxville. You shouldn't have lost to them last year, but I think in Knoxville you beat them, although Florida's had their number. Those are the top 3 are the ones we mentioned, and I would probably put Florida 4th on that list as the 4th toughest opponent for Tennessee.
Yeah, Florida and NC State are in that like next tier. I think.
And NC State got a pretty good quarterback from Coastal Carolina, Grayson McCall.
Yeah,
who's pretty good now. So that's going to be. I don't know the rest of their roster, but that's a pretty good player right there at quarterback.
That is true. And in terms of revenge games for Heupel, there is Missouri, there is Oklahoma, but I think he wants to get back in Missouri too after what Eli Drinkwitz did this past year. So
yes,
he's got that one circled.